how do you like really confuse?
You can't confuse it. He's a 30-year goddamn hunter. He's lost his job, thank God. And he's a 30-year hunter. He had a scope on a crossbow. He killed one and the other. Pardon?
So everybody knows we're on.
Oh. So you kill a crossbow. You'll get two. He knows the difference. Hit 2 times the turtles.
By the way, I don't know where John Moore is going to arrive, I think, preferably by 7:20. I'll look after the bomb info and my report and
To get
everything else.
smaller and
Okay.
smaller.
I like these new chairs.
Fair enough.
Like it? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'll talk slow because I'm not going to encourage you to have, you know, a lot of issues with 9A.
That thing came out good.
I think so too. And thank you, Candace, actually, for specifically the updates to the back. That was really smart.
Looks real good.
I think so too.
Looked real
I
good.
thought using your own words would convince you.
Yeah, well, there you go.
It just didn't make sense.
Yeah, you're right.
That piece.
I was trying to find something to just throw
Right,
back
right.
and
And I
it
said,
didn't need to be there.
well, we have this, you know, so I
Yeah.
like tried, but I couldn't give the accurate information that you added to it at all, because I didn't know what it was.
I didn't do much.
Yes, you
But-
did, well, the amount for the school.
All 3 characters,
But,
you're
s-
right.
but still, I mean, I didn't know what the actual number was, you know, so,
But I think it came out well.
yeah, I do too.
Did
I'm glad
you,
you got rid of the,
did you print this in-house or?
No, so we've been doing, we did a cost benefit on in-house versus Goulet printing, and when you add in they have a reduced mail rate that they're able to run on these, it's about the
better.
same. And it's a lot less administrative burden for us to get somebody else to fold them and get them to the post office and all that. So,
Nice job.
yeah, yeah.
I like the yellow much better than the blue.
Yeah,
That was too dark.
That's actually what took me the longest, I think, once.
And I'm
once
sure
we had our
glad,
last
Candy, that you
conversation.
suggested 4 pages.
Huh? Yes,
Yeah, it needed to be larger
there you
text.
go, Buck.
And the yellow lines are for roads.
You know where I learned to use yellow to highlight was in a badminton class in college. When the instructor was like, never use yellow alone, always use it to highlight.
Most contrasting color, most readable color is yellow, is black on
It's the
yellow.
strangest
That's why
place
they
I
have them in all
remember
their
it from.
yield signs and everything.
Yeah.
Anyone heard from Jonathan?
2 minutes. God, these chairs are so much better.
Are they? I think so. They're floating around. I think the chairs that were in here are in the probate room, and the chairs from the probate room went to the,
At least I feel like I'm
Or vice versa.
at a height that's normal.
yeah.
Yeah, probate room, doesn't matter what, you're like this in that room anyway.
Of course, the mayor doesn't have his 5 back.
Well, you know, beggars can't be choosers. It's a new chair.
I didn't know you were begging.
It's a new chair.
Oh, I didn't know there was a higher back, I never noticed it.
Yeah, there was. I got swallowed in it.
Yeah, it's a lot.
When we get that letter.
We'll get started. We'll just make a note when he gets here. Yep. Good evening. Today is Monday, March 6th. Welcome to the regular Board of Selectmen's meeting. It is 7 PM. Can I have a call to order?
Candace Bouchard.
Candy Perez?
Josh Kelly.
Todd Archelashi.
Glenn Albanesius. Stephen Sedlak.
Linda Grappo?
Jack Bork. Selectman Moorhart is running a little late. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda review. Anyone have anything? Seeing none, can I have an approval of our regular meeting on February 21st?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Candace. Thank you, Steve. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Unanimous? Thank you. Item 5, citizens' comments. The Board of Selectmen welcomes public comments. Speakers be limited to 3 minutes or less and may speak only once. Please give your name and address. Anyone wish to speak? Captain?
Evening.
That's the mic.
I'm glad to see it. Here, which I know you haven't seen me in a while, because of this. I think it was well done. And lets the town people know where they're at. First of all, put it in the papers. Okay. I'm gonna bring to your attention one thing. It says about citizens' comment, 3 minutes. That's BS. There's 5 minutes per person, 10 minutes for an individual representing a group. Reason is because of this document back in 2013, where the ACLU came in against Mary Ann Welcome because they wanted to suppress freedom of speech. And the town was gonna get sued, and the selectmen were gonna get sued. Bottom line, shenanigans took place behind closed doors, and they reduced the time without bringing it to public knowledge from 5 minutes to 3 minutes. I have a timer on well, I'm taking my 5 minutes, and we went through this once before out there, all right?
Well, if you're gonna address me, we might as well have a discussion about it then. The
I'm sorry?
ACLU says that we have the right to set the amount of time and the right as to how many sessions during public comment. And I
You
know
did it
that because I was there.
behind closed doors, and it was
It was
done.
not. It's been on the agenda for, some Mary Ann
Been
Waldo
too long.
hasn't
You
been
went-
here since
Was it in front of you with Bob Geiger?
2013.
I
This has
went
been like
to
this since
Brian Flanagan,
2013.
Proctor and Hamilton, Boston College, and I
2013.
know the law, and you were wrong.
We're here since
So
2013 with
anyway,
the same
I don't care
process.
what you did. I'm taking 5 minutes whether you like it or not.
Well,
I'm
he's the
putting
mayor,
it
he'll decide.
on timer right now. It's on the timer. Okay, end the conversation on that. No sense in repeating past history. All right, then we had a situation with XFD, the gaming people. This is another scam. Luckily, a person that you know well, Marcia Sterling, whether you like it or not and what she did, she still saved us $275,000 from being scummed by a bunch of criminals, all right? And they tried to do another backwash thing with the old housing up there for the nursing home up on the Highland Lake. They took off for the hills. They got caught, thanks to Marcia. And whatever Candy did to get Marcia out of the picture, she did very well. So that's what's in it. Well, you did. I mean, I'm not saying that
There
you
was
were
an
right or wrong.
election.
I
There
just
was an
said
election.
Marcia caught them.
There
She
was-
caught them and she turned around. and
You don't have to bring my name into it.
Well,
Keep
you were
doing it.
there.
You why are you here?
You didn't want Marcia as a mayor, so we know that. Okay, now, we wound up going
Let it
through
be.
2 years of receivership. Why? Because it was found out, Arthur found out, that the Democratic BOE was corrupt. We wound up in receivership for 2 years. And that the Hinsdale School, which was going through, and under with that, was gonna get refund done. We still got 3 operating schools in this town? Is that what we got?
Public schools?
Hmm.
We have just 2
2.
operating public schools
So
right
we
now.
have Pearson, and so Batchley is closed down.
It is closed.
All right, I've been corrected.
Okay.
Okay, fine. Now, the other thing, when I was over at the Hinsdale, and I saw all this equipment, the desks and chairs and whatnot stacked up, we're gonna wind up having that sent to the dump and whatnot. They could have been cleaned up, they could have been reused, this would save the town a lot of money, having, instead of buying. And what about another $10,000 that the BOE chair wanted to redo her, right? So anyway, the point is, they could have gone to any one of the warehouses in Hartford, which is loaded with all kinds of appliances and so forth. So, okay, that could be done. There's a lot of ways, but when I read this, saying, okay, now, one other thing, we had, $50,000 were put into an EDC fund. We had the Northwest people up here, we had another independent gentleman and whatnot, and it was agreed that the independent gentleman would be a counselor to bring and afford to bring in new businesses into the town. I guess it didn't work out, and he was released. But then shenanigans took place again. And what happened was instead of being called the EDC, fund for finding new businesses, it got rebranded. It was called the Selectmen Slush Fund. Oh yeah, that's exactly what it is. It got rebranded. That's no bullshit. That is truth. So what happened to that $50,000 was supposed to be strictly for the use of EDC. Disappeared, all right? Now, we have a gentleman here. I give him every credit as a recruiter. Jack, this is good. You did a very good job. You provided for your family. Your job was to recruit businesses, to find people, or people for industry and so forth. In that particular case, I know you did not like it because I publicly called you a spin doctor.
Excuse me, we way past the 3-minute mark, and we are now past his 5-minute mark, and we are, are we gonna have the rule, or we're not gonna have the rule?
Captain, please wrap up your comments.
Well, I can always save it for the second half, all right?
Yes, sir.
Jack, you've done a good job, but you should be using your talents to find new businesses in this town. You haven't done it. Okay. We'll wait for the second time around.
Anyone else? John? David?
I want the good selectmen to know that I want to stand corrected in regards to Mr. Kelly and his secretary. Ms. Hall said I could get the information for free and I could get it online. She did. That information is public information on the website that he just developed along with the other gentleman from Winston. And she did give me that information. So my quarrel is not in regards to that Freedom of Information request. My contention now is in regards to the document that you are all talking about prior to the meeting tonight, saying it was a good document. I received it, my wife received it, taxpayers throughout this town, yes, that's it, received it, and appropriately so, Mr. Town Manager and Honorable Selectmen. In that is a chart on the page 2 that succinctly says the fund balance. As in homeowners, our budget, we need to know what our savings is, or our investments, and the town also has a fund balance. Now, as I learned from the good town manager, it's just not one figure. There are several figures that make up that total fund balance. And in my Freedom of Information request, it was pretty specific. And I was told at the time by Selectman Perez, by the town manager, by Terry Hall, that, gee, we have to compile that. We don't know what it is. I find it hard to believe that the town manager, the good town manager, doesn't know what the approximate value of the town fund balance is. That is money in the bank as compared to, with your chart, as homeowners do know what they have in the bank. So that's all I was asking for. Have I received any of that information? Even one of the 7 underlying fund balances? No, I have not. I did get an email from the finance director saying that if you wanted to get this, it's going to cost money to have it produced. I object to that vehemently because the town manager and the Board of Selectmen should know what the fund balance is. And I'm sorry that I came across as upset. I had just come from the beautiful state of Florida to see my beautiful daughter, and it was a wonderful time. Even though an officer killed himself on the way on the train who sat across from us, who was having difficulty, and I didn't know at the time, but he committed suicide. So not only was I upset about that, but I was upset that when I came home, when I talked to Terry, she said to me, what are you talking about? What, Freedom of Information requests? And they were pretty specific. I typed them myself. My wife did not type them. And, I just wanted an answer. I was tempted to say to the town attorney, why is it that we don't get information? When the town manager has said it's an open book, like Bob Geiger was, that information is public, it should be disseminated. And that's all I'm asking. So I'm sorry and I apologize if I came off half-cocked, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Town Manager. I apologize. But I still would like to know, and the townspeople should know, what the fund balance is. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David.
On page 90 of the municipal documents of the annual audit, you will find general fund, committed, assigned, unassigned, total general fund, all government funds, non-spendable, restricted, committed, assigned, and unassigned, total all other government funds from 2012 to 2021. Our other audit will be out in a little while too, right?
Yes, it's in our offices now. We're waiting to, we're about to circulate.
It's under the 2021 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, under the Finance Department.
Other public comment?
William Pozo, 155 Newfield Road. I'm here to speak with several neighbors today regarding, I'm sure some of you or all of you are familiar with what's going on at 149 Newfield Road. I want to discuss basically, this situation's been going on since 2016. It kind of slid in when this originally went for approval. We were supposed to have a public hearing, public comment section, somehow it got slid in as a site plan. Bottom line, short story, we're stuck with a commercial business in the middle of a residential neighborhood. There's been several major ongoing issues on this property. I've worked with P&Z, obviously you're all aware I had a lawsuit against the town and against ECAD. That's since been closed. Now the state fire marshal has stepped in before I instigated this. Wants a 20-foot road cut into Newfield Road all the way up to these buildings, paved. When I try to get answers from P and Z, is this gonna be engineered, which all of these neighbors have had their driveways engineered, drainage, culverts, to address the water problems. I get a kind of look in the face, well, we'll look into it, Mr. Paul, we'll look into it, we'll get back to you, we'll get back to you. There's a, and again, I realize P and Z's been through a lot of changes, our enforcement agents have changed. Lance is new in a position, unfortunately, he's getting stuck with this because I couldn't get an answer from the last administration. I brought in as many state agencies as I can on this because we have massive problems on Newfield Road, as you know. I provided them with videos, pictures, all kinds of documentation, drains being put in, no permits. Our latest enforcement officer was up there, actually found a couple drains that were put in, made him tear them out. I believe they went back in a few weeks later. I have pictures of machines up there and dump trucks on Sunday morning at 6 a.m. dumping dirt. We've dumped tons of material onto Newfield Road, which is all dumping into the east branch of the Naugatuck River, which is why DEP has such a concern over this. It's a trout restoration river now, the east branch of the Naugatuck. And 149 keeps saying it's coming off the abutting neighbor's property, which is a third of an acre, right on the edge of the road, with 15 acres around them coming downhill. I have pictures of it coming right off that property onto the thing, and again, I'm getting nowhere. So I wanted to bring awareness that I've come to my wit's end with these departments, and I spoke to everybody about 4 to 6 weeks ago. Lance, right before the last enforcement officer left, everybody said, I'm done, I'm giving a week. All I want is, I expect communication. Yes, Mr. Posa, we can help you. Yes, we're gonna address it. There's nothing we can do. It's out of our control. And I got nothing. So I simply typed an email, hit send, and now I've had more communication in the last week than I've had in 6 years, which is kind of funny that everybody's stepping up to the plate now. It's a big concern. But I shouldn't have to be coming here and saying this is a concern. This is a major problem. If this was on Highland Lake and I spilt a water bucket over, we'd have several states involved and agencies from everywhere. Here, we're washing out a road, the head wall has fallen over, Newfield Road, the whole bank's undercut, and eventually we're just gonna lose a vehicle right over into the river. I've had Jim Rollins up, they look at it, yeah, that's pretty bad, we're not gonna be able to do that till we do the road in 3-4 years, and it's actually should almost be a liability for the town at this point. I know DEP's coming up to check that out as well. So I guess I'm here just to find out if there's some accountability for P and Z and enforcement and whatnot. Is there gonna be enforcement? Is there gonna be action? Is this actually gonna be addressed? And I know there's several neighbors here with me tonight that have different concerns as far as traffic, operating hours. You guys have contacted this business several times, telling them his operating hours are 6 a.m., or 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., which in his mind constitute to about 6:30 in the morning till 9:30 at night. I have cars coming down this road. They come around the corner and the headlights do this right across the back of my house. I have 10 acres. I moved up into Winchester Center, kind of get out of town. And now I just have cars up and down this driveway. I brought that to their attention. Again, I got, well, we'll look into it. When I drove up here to find out if they looked into it, I got, well, we talked to him and he said he's always kind of done 7 to 7, so he'll go 8 to 6, but his employees are still gonna do 7 to 7, which this was a couple months ago. This still equates to 6:30 in the morning to 9:30 at the night, so I don't know where the time zone difference is there, but again, I keep approaching and I get no accountability, I get no enforcement. If I can't, then I have no choice but to escalate it up to the state level, see if they can get some accountability and some enforcement, and if the water issues don't get addressed, there is an agent assigned to this matter by DEP. If I don't get satisfaction there, I'll escalate it to the Army Corps of Engineers to the federal level, if we have to. I know the town doesn't want these agencies coming in and stepping in and saying what's going on. I'm sure you guys have probably seen the letter, I'm sure you've seen responses from DEP. If not, they're available in this building, I know they are, because I've been copied on them. So, I appreciate your time and, some communication if we can look into this matter.
Just if I could share with you, Mr. Pozo, I know that especially in the last week, you're right, my staff has been able to communicate with you a little bit more. You and I have never had the chance to sit down and talk more about this, but I would like to do that. And I have been briefed this week by my staff on what they're doing in real time. So I think that you're going to be satisfied with the work that they're doing. I know that the enforcement officer especially have been working with you in the past. There is only so much we can do at the local level, and there's only so many teeth that we have, so to speak. But we are working, and not just internally, but I actually welcome the state agencies especially to come in and work with us to get this done. If there's any action that needs to be taken from an enforcement standpoint, we always have more teeth when the state's involved. So you may find that it just yields faster results because that's the way the law works.
Well, I hope so. If I can rebut to that a little bit, I think there's a lot more the town could do when it comes to enforcement. If you speak to this individual several times, tell him these are your operating hours and he doesn't comply, I'm pretty sure you guys can start a daily fine. This gentleman's license could be pulled because he still, since 2016 when this project started and was approved, does not have a CO on the property. He has a temporary, they told me it's a temporary CO. I said, 7 years? How? So you're telling me I can go back, put up a 50,000 square foot building and road going to it, start a business, and if in 7 years I don't have a CO? Well, I'm working on it, guys. I'll get there. I mean, what's temporary? Do we have so that could be looked into. I think there is some more, and again, I understand it's tough with personnel changes, but there kind of needs to be a pass-off from one regime to the next too, and issues brought up. But I know you're aware of it, and again, if you do want to speak more about it, my email's on file, my phone's on file, my address is on file. I'm huge on communication. I'm also very flexible in my time, so if you want to meet during the day, the evening, whatnot, I can always get here to meet with any of you.
I appreciate that.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak who hasn't spoken yet?
My name is Richard Alley. I live at 133 Wally Road.
Can you talk into the microphone so the TV can hear? Thank you.
Richard Allen, 133 Wally Road, Winchester Center. Been in this town for a little over 50 years. Great place. My kids were well educated here and have gone on to doctors and engineers and therapists, and they've all done very well. So I'm really proud of the education that they received in this town. And I know we're trying to take and put things together again. They slid a little. Anyway, I represent quite a few of the folks in my area that have a significant amount of property, upwards of about 1,000 acres, combining what was taken over by Bob Muller at Uli Out and a lot of other property that came down along adjacent to Park Pond. Krasinski family owns around 200 acres of property. Bob Muller's got about 750. 200 acres of property. Also abutting One-Year Road in Winchester. Families don't live here, and they could be potential development sites somewhere along the line. It's farming and forestry now. It's a great wildlife corridor. I hate to see it disrupted. So I'm concerned about that. I have observed the same thing that Mike referred to, and that is there seems to be a real slack enforcement of zoning regs. Now, I've been through this with Camp Wani, and I'll just cite a few that I've talked about. They said to be corrected. They weren't. One of the things is we're supposed to have garbage containers out of public sight. They're supposed to be covered properly so the bears don't get into them and muscle them around. And there are, I believe, 5 dumpsters that are within about 50 feet, maybe 75 feet of Wani Road, and a parking lot that was filled on wetlands, and that's created some other problems with the road. Downlighting at Wani has been a problem for years. They've got a big light light out there in that parking lot, and comes right over on my property, and I own about, what, 1,400 feet along Wawney Road, and so those are just a few of the things. The water problems, it was Camp Berger, but I won't get into that. So I'm concerned about the enforcement of things, and I've observed with Bill what went on with the ECAD over the last couple of years. He brought suit against the town, against ECAD, because they were asking for something that was really in violation to our plan of development in the area. And it was basically to be a rural farming nature, not a 9,000 square foot building that they built with various mechanicals on the top of the building, and basically a butler type building. He wants to put another one up. And the town has basically acquiesced to that. They were gonna let him do it with certain restrictions on it. He didn't even abide by the restrictions. He was supposed to plant buffer, didn't do that. And he was supposed to get his road fixed, he didn't do that. Now apparently he's got a contract or negotiations with Borghese to take and put up something that he's gonna take and put up the same type of structure that now exists there, and which isn't even occupancy certificate hasn't been granted on it. So anyway, I just have some questions beyond that. Number one, I did a little digging. I know ECAD is tax exempt on their entire operation. I believe there's three properties or 3 parcels that are within his 14 or 20 acres that he's got there. And there is a disclaimer. I don't know what that disclaimer is. I didn't hit the tax collector up on that, but I would like to really know what the disclaimer is that he has on his properties, and the taxes that he doesn't pay to the town of Winchester. And the other thing is, I would like to ask, in that we have been outrageously willing to let him put in what he has to date with some ruffled feathers by the neighbors, rightfully so. Has anybody truly looked into his tax exempt status? The town has granted him 0 taxes on property for these many years. And does anybody audit his income and his expenses to make sure he's not walking off with $150,000, $200,000 in his pocket to go elsewhere and do things with? I just don't know. I'm a farmer. I have to file every year with the town, every 2 years with the state of Connecticut, my tax exempt permit. And I have to take, and I'm even taxed right down to my rakes and my shovels. And every year, and every 2 years I have to take and renew it. I've got to have an average of $5,000 total over income over a 2-year period. So, I mean, I'm responsible for that to the state. And I think the town of Winchester ought to think and step up to the plate and see that this guy is really playing it straight with us, because we are giving him a lot. And these neighbors on either side of him give up a lot. And I'm afraid of giving up a lot, because I do represent some of these properties that are in precarious condition. Thank you very much, and appreciate you listening to me, and I'll put it more the heck out of you.
My name is Amy Reeve, and I am no longer a resident of the town, but I still work in town, and I work at a civil engineering firm in town. So I'm very, I see on a regular basis how the town works with the commissions and the application process, and, you know, who does what, and all the hoops that have to be jumped through, and all the commissions, and how many times people have to go in front of the commissions, and how the enforcement works and everything like that. So that being said, I was one of the original neighbors that was subject to this whole, I'm gonna call it a catastrophe, for lack of a better word, because I was the neighbor that could see this whole compound from my kitchen and living room. And was completely unaware that this actually got approval until it was too late. We were not given the opportunity of a public hearing or any advance notice or that it had been approved, nothing. So I can tell you that from the very beginning of this whole process, it's been one sucker punch to the gut after another, again and again and again. My husband and I did wind up selling our property because of retirement reasons, and but I have never, my original feeling about this whole process and the town and the area has never changed at all. I still, to this day, believe as firmly as I did the day this whole thing started that how this whole process was approved and the way it has progressed and the permissions that have been granted all along the way, that has been a seriously flawed process, seriously flawed. There are problems up there with drainage and wetlands and driveway clearances and, you know, mechanicals on the existing building, which, like was previously said, still does not have a permanent CO. The mechanicals on that building are up on top of the building in plain view. You can hear it, everything else. That is a zoning violation. That was allowed to happen. If you take into consideration the town's POCD, this whole process, this whole compound was developed and continues to be developed in direct violation of that POCD. The building that is there is a commercial building and has been referenced as such forever in all of the meetings. So that is in direct violation of the POCD. They want to do another of the same style buildings. So, and I understand that after going to Supreme Court, the rulings, the final ruling on the last application came with restrictions. None of those things, ECAD as a whole has not complied with any of those things that were put in force at the last approval. Nothing. Not a single ounce of barrier or border screening, nothing with respect to the driveway. There is still a stormwater retention pond that, even upon its installation, did not work, does not work, and no one has addressed that. Actually, I shouldn't say that. In one of the meetings, the engineer that was proposing this second phase says, well, my intention is to fix that in this second phase. And I always was of the belief that, why are we proceeding to a second phase if the first phase was never implemented correctly? It's not closed out. There is no CO, no permanent CO. There's a stormwater problem that is of concern. There's screening between properties that is still of concern. Original trees were put in, they were never watered, and they were allowed to die. So who is to say that when this next phase is the border screening plan, the landscape plan for this next phase, if that is implemented, who's going to enforce that when it doesn't get watered and it dies just like the last two did? Who's going to enforce that for the sake of the neighbors? I understand that the town operates in the zoning enforcement and the planning office. I understand they operate on a limited staff. So that's a huge question for the people who still live there, because I lived there, so I know what it looks like. And they want to put another 42 dog kennels in that new building.
Please
And
begin
they
to
are-
wrap up.
Pardon?
Please begin to wrap up.
Okay, so I guess my big thing is who's going to enforce this and who's going to address the issues that are currently there now and that have been there since the very beginning for these neighbors? Who's gonna do that for them? It's the job of the town to do that. And so far, nobody's done it. And it's owed to the neighbors that still live there to have this enforced. Thank you.
Anyone else who hasn't spoken yet? Seeing none, moving on to the town manager's report.
Thank you very much. So tonight, actually in just a few minutes, I won't belabor this because we'll get more into it in a moment, but we do have more bonding information for you. The plan as of right now is to move forward to a bond rating call, so long as everything looks to be in order today. That bond rating call would take place tomorrow, and a sale would be conducted on March 23rd, with the bond settling on April 5th. With the budget, the document will be shared with the Board of Selectmen no later than March 15th, 2023, per charter requirements. Certainly, there's a lot of time, effort, and energy going into that right now to make sure it's as lean as it can be while still being able to address some of the issues that have been, for example, mentioned tonight. With economic development, we had a request for qualifications for 508 Main Street that is closed. Will be discussed later. Additional meetings are being held with different property owners to discuss continued development around town. And I am hoping, we have a marketing proposal that's been very, very slowly moving its way forward through the EDC and other channels, and I hope that I can bring that in front of this Board of Selectmen soon. We are working with a private company right now. I believe I shared this at the last meeting. The Capital Region Council of Governments has gotten back to us. They only run every 3 years their energy auction. We cannot enter in the last year of that energy auction, so we have a private company that we've worked with before through the Energy Commission that is helping us create a competitive process to set a new electricity supplier. They've suggested to us that somewhere in the ballpark of 10 to 11 cents for a supplier would be attainable, not just for us, but for the Board of Education as well as the Water and Sewer Commission. So that's the hope, and that's what we're working towards. The Board of Assessment Appeal meetings begin this month. I believe actually tomorrow is their first meeting. All of those applications are turned in at this point. We had over 200 applications. And I know that they will have many meetings between now and April, beginning of April, to move through all of that. Since this group last met, we have submitted a Trails Grant application to the State Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. We received notification today of the Aquatic Invasive Species Removal Prevention Grant from State DEP, which is going to be a help to us as we look to continue to expand our capacity to address invasive species in our otherwise pristine waterways. We did, since this group last met, we were visited at Town Hall by the Commissioner of Revenue, Mark Botten, who was appointed in the last 2 years by Governor Lamont to an additional duty where he's overseeing money given to the state by the federal government through the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. So Commissioner Botten and his staff visited Winstead and spoke with myself and other staff members. That was Thursday, February 23rd. The goal of that was to make sure that he has a deeper understanding of the infrastructure projects that Winstead was trying to get off the ground so that he can relay us to the appropriate grant funding that may be available through the IIJA, again, that Jobs Act. So it was a tremendously successful and useful meeting. I'm very glad that he took the time to come on out and meet with us. He said that as far as communities go, there are very few that have identified as many projects as we have, which is only going to help us in the long run because that means that there are more projects that can obtain funding. Funding that's not coming from local property taxpayers, which is a good thing. Within personnel, we are, as has been pointed out today, looking for a new enforcement officer. If anybody knows somebody who may be qualified and capable in that position is open, I believe, through the end of March. Exact time frame can be found on our town website. Going down my list a little bit more, I did just want to note I was invited, as well as I know at least Selectman Bork, to participate in Reading Across America this past Thursday. It was really nice to be able to get into the Pearson School and to engage with some of the students there. They were very interested in local government. I think you've got at least that one class very likely going to have a group that's coming up to be engaged in local government. So I look forward to that. With the schools, my regular meetings with Superintendent Brady Shanley have continued to be held. Their requested increase in the school budget for fiscal year 2024 is approximately $1.4 million. Beyond that, we are working towards our sustainable CT certification, and we seem to be on track for our early April submission in that area. Not taking a tremendous amount of time, but is still a very key thing that I've been working towards, as you know. There are a number of items related to town-owned properties that we'll discuss a little bit later in our meeting. And regarding unions, we will be beginning our police union negotiations as soon as a new chief is formally appointed. Are there any questions that I can answer for everybody right now?
Yeah, I was curious about the historic tax credit.
Yes,
You
the historic
mentioned it.
district.
Yeah, that's going to be, you're inquiring about that for
So in particular,
Where?
10 Bridge Street.
Bridge Street?
Yeah, the historic mill buildings, really
Yeah.
on the south side of Main Street.
And what does that entail, or what's the tax credit?
So the state of Connecticut, and we do have a historic district in town. It doesn't encompass these buildings, however. So over at 10 Bridge Street and 35 Willow Street, we have two old mill buildings that have the capacity together, we believe, and we're working with, there's a private developer in town who's interested in moving this forward, and we've already had state officials come out to take a look at these properties. There's an opportunity to designate a historic district, and I'm not a tax accountant, so don't ask me exactly how this works, but with a state designation for a historic district, you have an opportunity as a developer to have certain historic tax credits applied to the work that you're doing on that site. It makes it more affordable for a new development to occur, and in particular with a proposal to move forward with a development at 10 Bridge Street, building number 1. It's thought that that historic district would be pivotal in allowing, financially enabling that building to be redeveloped.
And now you're saying 35 Willow as well?
35 Willow could be included in the district.
Okay.
The instigator of this conversation is the prospective buyer at 10 Bridge Street.
What about 32 Lake Street?
32 Lake Street, the problem with historic districts is that they have to be contiguous. We would have to have other buildings between the two locations be a part of that, and there really aren't the same.
The river took care of that.
Right, that's the issue. So 32 Lake Street could make its own application, and there's an opportunity to have separate historic districts. But within this historic mill building district that we're looking at right now, it would not be included.
Okay, thank you.
And I should also note, there is a grant report. I am trying to get these to you more regularly, and I think that it's in a format where it's a little easier to get it to you more regularly now. So you can see, with the sole exception of the notification we got today, which is the Aquatic Invasive Species Grant, this is up to date.
How much was that grant?
It was, they did
17,000?
not, we applied for 17,000 and they awarded, I believe, 14,000 and change, 14,900.
Does that have a time frame to spend?
It's this fiscal year. This is an annual grant that they give. It's my hope and my intention that we will apply for it every year, because there's annual maintenance that needs to be done to prevent prevent the spread of invasive species once they're in the lake, and also to prevent the spread of invasive species from getting to the lake in the first place.
Can we use it around the riverbed?
I'm
Can we
sorry.
use it around the riverbed?
Yes, we will be able, there's work at the base of the riverbed coming into Highland Lake. We'll be able to.
How about along Main Street?
At this point, no. This grant is only for Highland Lake.
All right.
There's an opportunity in the future also to expand to Park Pond, where we also give an amount of money every year for invasive species prevention.
I think the form is nice, and is he going to submit this every 2 weeks?
So, the last time you saw this was a month ago.
Okay.
My thought was the first meeting each month you could
Okay.
see it.
I do-
If you'd like it more often, that's
No, that's
perfectly
okay.
fine.
But I was just, need some clarification. Eligible expenditures, you've got, what's the cutoff date? What is that?
So cutoff date, that's the last day on which we were we can legally spend down on that grant.
That we can spend down?
Right, so there are still, I don't call it
Okay.
the end date because there's still work on the back end with accounting and auditing that needs
Okay.
to be done to make sure that everything was in order and properly spent. But in terms of work being conducted, all of the work for these projects within the grant total should have been completed by that date. Or that month.
Josh, the Community Challenge Grant doesn't show up here.
No? There are so many grants listed. That's not one of them.
Community
Oh.
Challenge Grant?
Yeah, it's on page 3.
Yeah, it's on page 3.
It's the third one down.
So 5.
So it's under active grants. And I apologize if that's a little confusing. We have active grants where we have work that can be conducted. The state's given, or whatever the granting agency is, has given us permission to move forward with activities. And then you have grants awarded where we've received notification that we will receive money, but we haven't yet received authorization to proceed with the work. So those are the two.
So that's under DECD, the challenge grants.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. And later this week, actually, we have some final documents that need to be signed. We're allowed to proceed with all of that work right now, but in order to have more of a cash flow from that program, we need to sign a few last documents. I should have that later this week or early next week.
So just one more question.
Yep.
So you're not doing these grants just for the town, you're doing them also for other businesses?
For the most part, we're trying to focus on the town.
Okay,
For a
so
few
I just see
key
this, you know-
economic development items, we are partnering with private entities,
Right.
like 10 Bridge Street.
Okay.
It's just, the bottom line is, as we've already heard about with bachelor school, right? There have been a couple proposals for affordable housing or something like that. There's so much money for housing projects out in the grand wide world, but most of them require some level of nonprofit or municipal sponsor. So DECD right now has its brownfields program that's operating. My understanding is that a private entity can't simply go to DECD and say, please give us a few $1 million for, lead abatement or something like that. But with municipal help, we can be partners together. We can say this is a key area of economic development in our town. It's a cornerstone, really, of Main Street, and it's almost visually a keystone, I think, to our downtown area. It makes sense for us to support their application. And we've done it before. So the current owners back in 2021 worked with me to develop the same application through DECD. At that time, I weren't in a place to move forward. And in a conversation with DECD, that was made known, and DECD decided not to award. But we're in a place now with a new developer who has the monetary resources to provide matches that are required and can move that in a very positive direction, I think.
Thank you.
No problem.
No other questions? Moving on to item number 7, correspondence. Does anyone have anything? Seeing none. Boards and commissions. Steve?
Thank you, Todd. Tonight, we're ready to take action on 2 appointments, and so I will move to appoint Paul Parent as a permanent member of the Soldiers Monument Commission, term to expire in June of 2024.
I'll second.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Jack. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Unanimous?
Okay, and I will also move to appoint Shannon Centrella as an alternate member of the Economic Development Commission, term to expire in April of 2027.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Linda. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
And finally, I'd like to acknowledge the resignation of Kevin O'Connell as a member of the Economic Development Commission. You saw his letter in the package. He's moved from the area, and we'd like to thank him for his service to the town. That would be the report, Todd.
Thank you, Steve. Moving on to new, unfinished business. Item A, 23-10, consider and possibly act on the bond issuance information.
So in your packet tonight, you have quite a bit of bond information, some of which you've seen before, some of which you have not. Starting with the information that you have seen before, all of the selectmen have this here document, which shows the likely, and all of these are projections. The bond sale has not happened yet, as I said. That will take place in later March, given that we're moving forward. And right now, we're looking at doing it's not really two separate issuances, but we have two separate bond approvals that are being woven together into a single bond issuance of $11.5 million. So coming up, we have 7.4 of that, which will be under the infrastructure money, and we have another 4.1, which will be for the Hinsdale School. The bonding of that money for the Hinsdale School will close out that project. The $7.4 million on infrastructure dollars will include $600,000 for sidewalks, which is the full amount that was authorized, $1.4 million for a ladder truck, which was the full amount authorized, $250,000 for drainage improvements around Highland Lake, which is a quarter of the amount authorized, and the remainder will be tied up with the other road projects that are to be moved forward in this current year, 2023, and next year, 2024. So looking at that, you have a breakdown of how much we expect to see in principal payments as well as interest in each passing year for each of these bonds. We also have an outlook for the other two bonds that we expect to issue in July 2024 and July 2025. We're not looking at those right now, though. For our planning purposes, Anne Marie and I have really been drilling down and looking to make sure that everything's going to be stable as we increase our capacity to pay down these bonds. But for the purposes of proceeding with the bond issuances tonight, we're really looking at the two April 2023 items, which fall under the infrastructure and Hinsdale columns that are provided to you. So this current year, we're not paying anything over what we've paid in the past. Actually, we're paying a little bit less this year for debt service than we did last year. That's because we have a bond from 2004, 2005 that is going to expire not this year, but next year. So we have to make bond payments in fiscal year 2023, and we have to make bond payments in fiscal year 2024. And each year that drops off just a little bit. So that's a good thing from our perspective. That's giving us more capacity. The other really good news is that we planned well last year. So in this current year's budget, we have $400,000 that was allocated to debt service on top of what we needed to pay off for the 2004-2005 bond. And we also put another $150,000 into a debt service fund. So that debt service fund money will be able to come back to us and be used to pay down bond costs in future years. So it will help us level off the amount of increase that we have in any single budget to ensure that we don't have a huge hike, a huge burden all of a sudden on our residents. Yes, the burden is going to go up. Yes, that was made known before we went to referendum, and the referendum back in May 2022 was very clear in that there would be increased costs related to this. But this is all for the purpose of improving our infrastructure, which we all know is needed. So, moving forward with this, the proposal on the table, like I said, is to borrow the $11.5 million. The way that we move forward with that, first we have to have a bond rating call. The last time we had a bond rating was from Moody's. We received a single A rating, which is not a bad rating, but it's certainly not what you'd expect from a municipality in a positive financial position in the state of Connecticut. You're looking hopefully at least at a AA- or something to that effect. What we are doing is, or what I hope and plan to do is to meet with S&P Global Ratings tomorrow. We'll have a phone conversation with them, with our bond advisor, myself, the finance director, and so forth. And they need to issue a bond rating. We're currently looking at a AA or AA+ based on the improvements that have been made since Moody's last issued a bond rating back in, I think it was 2018 or 2019. So that's a very positive outlook for us, and that's going to give us really good momentum going into this bond issuance. The better our bond rating is, the lower the interest rate will be that we're looking at. So even if that pushes it down just a few basis points, it's going to make a big difference as you look at each subsequent year of debt payments that we're making, much like a mortgage on a house. You just need that interest rate to be as low as possible. So the bond rating is going to occur. They won't have an answer for us tomorrow. They're going to send that to committee, and probably by the middle of next week, they'll have an answer for us. That's going to be put into an official statement, which Anne Marie and I, it's all a bunch of technical, factual data. There's really nothing subjective about the official statement, and that's its purpose, to give the rating agency and the individuals who are going to put in their bids for our bonds a objective outlook on our current financial position and the management of our financial position. So that's the conversation that we have with the rating agency. That rating goes on the official statement, and then it's shared with the public. There's a period of time where the market has the opportunity to examine our official statement, think about what it might issue in terms of an offering on our bonds, and eventually we will go to sale. That sale date is Thursday, March 23rd. There's a period of time where it's going to be opened up to the public, and different companies, usually it's larger financial holding companies, are going to place bids on interest rates and so forth, so that they're essentially lending us this money, and we will pay it back with interest over time. We use something called a TIC. It's a complex mathematical formula to determine what the lowest possible interest rate is, and that is generally the firm that is awarded the bonds. So one single holder will hold all of the bonds, in this case, most likely. So that sale date takes place on March 23rd. We settle and we sign all the documents related to that on Wednesday, April 5th, and immediately following that, the money is deposited into our account, and we are able to proceed with starting to actually pay for these projects and get them moving, which is important because we're coming up on construction season. So Anne Marie and I have, I think, broken our minds a little bit and proverbially broken our backs, trying to make sure that we're on track to get this done. The official statement is a Herculean effort in and of itself. There's a lot of data, dozens of pages of just data that needed to be compiled, but we're in that position now. The other piece of information that you haven't yet seen that I wanted to share with you tonight before we proceed is an outlook between now and fiscal year 2030. And this is all hypothetical. This is what I am proposing to you that we adopt. I know that there are serious concerns about our capacity and about the annual operating budget having too much of a requested increase on a year-to-year basis. So the good news is that the biggest hurdle is behind us. We increased our budget by $550,000 in the operating budget last year. That's a huge amount, and it seriously built our capacity. Going into fiscal year 2024, which is the next budget that's coming up, I have laid out for you a series of plans that involves taking the money that we set aside and that I hope that we will continue to set aside in the debt service fund, and small increases in the annual operating budget each year to smooth out the rate at which we increase our capacity within the annual operating budget, to ensure that there's never more than what's the largest number? 187,000 and change as a single year increase. That sounds like a big number, but in the grand scheme of a $25+ million budget that's being levied every year from the local taxpayers, that's a pretty small blip. If we aren't able to use the debt service fund, or the Board of Selectmen isn't interested in that, there are some years where we would go up $0, and there are other years, or even decrease the amount that's needed, and there are other years where we would go up truly hundreds of thousands, 300, 400, 500,000 in a single leap. So by following this schedule, we can help make sure that it's very slow, incremental, conservative increases in the annual operating budget, and make sure that nobody's checkbook is broken in a single year, which is exactly what we want to avoid. So a lot of work went into trying to figure out what this will look like. I think that it paves the road, not just for me, not just for all of you, but anybody who's going to sit here over the next 8 years, and they'll know what to put in the budget if the board is interested in following this roadmap. The roadmap can be changed at any time too, as new information comes up. And hopefully, we will see all of these numbers drop if we're able to continue to increase our bond rating, which will decrease our interest rate, which will, and hopefully we're headed into better economic times too. So all of this to say, I believe you have all the information that you need at your disposal to authorize our procedure, our proceeding, I should say, with the bond issuance as planned. Certainly, you'll continue to get updates from us about the bond issuance itself. You'll continue to get updates from us about the road projects, the fire truck purchase, all of those other components as we proceed. But in order to stay on track, we've done our part as staff, I think, to provide as much as we can, and I'm looking for the board's blessing tonight to be able to proceed as planned.
Todd, I'll have a motion.
Thank you, Steve.
Can I ask a question first?
Ask the question
Well, I've
first.
been
or during
asking a
discussion?
question about the roads and the matchup of what was in the projection and what was presented to us at the last couple meetings, and I still don't have the final answer to, when the bond went out, we had certain roads that were gonna be done,
Yep.
you know, this next year and whatnot, and the roads that you brought to us the last meeting didn't match up to the roads that were in that formula for the bonds.
So my understanding is that there were 1 or 2 roads that were not in there. There is, I am telling you right now that there is some possible movement in fiscal year '24 because there may be a new grant that will allow us to move Newfield Road up from year 5, if either 4 or 5, to year 2. However, at this point in time, my understanding is that we are on track for all of the other road projects. If anything changes,
There was a couple of them in there, it wasn't just the one. There's South Road, Newfield is moving up, and
Yep.
then there was another one too. I guess it's just that, you know, when we have meetings, you know, people ask us to, you know, we show them what we're going to do with it.
Yep.
And then we get the money. I don't want it to be a situation where we're getting the money and then we switch things from what we told people when we asked them to vote on it. And that's why I'm pushing this
Understood.
issue.
Understood.
Is because, you know, and I also asked last week for what were the drainage for, the $250,000 for the Highland Lake drainage programs, because I want to make sure that's going to what we intended it to go for, which was all the catch basins, which will stop the sediment from getting into the lake.
it is going to catch basins.
Well, I don't have that in front of me.
But I can share that with you. I've spoken with Director of Public Works, and it is going to catch basins. You're right, I don't have that in front of me, and that's because they are working night and day to make sure that we're moving forward with all of these projects. They're down staff right now, especially on the water and sewer side, and it is slowing things down. But
I
you
get
have,
that, but this isn't like me asking just this last time. I mean, I've been asking for, you know.
a couple
I mean-
weeks, I know.
I mean, longer for the road thing, and then I can pull my email.
Okay.
So, I mean, I'm disappointed, I don't have it. Doesn't mean I wanna like stop the bond from going to sale, no, but it's still something I'm not like comfortable with in terms of that I've asked. We don't have all the answers. We don't even have the form that says, well, we're not gonna do it this way because we wanna move it that way, may we approve that? We don't even have that to approve.
We need
And I-
more staffing if we're trying to get all of this done
It wasn't.
in the way that you're
Yeah, I know
describing.
you want more staff, I know you need more staffing, or you say you want more staffing, but the questions I'm asking weren't that hard because there's already that grid made. And, you know, if you're gonna move off of what was projected and stuff, we should at least get the new grid with the new projections on it.
Okay, we'll have it made up.
Candy, is that information critical for tonight's decision to move forward?
Well, like I just said, I said I'm not gonna hold it up, but one of the things, if you've sat at any of the public hearings, which we all have, we have people out there looking at us and saying, is the money gonna go to where you say it's gonna go? And we say, yes, it's gonna go to these roads, or
I
yes, it's gonna
understand.
go to
And
that.
it is.
And it's going to some of the roads, but it's not.
No, it's, hold on. I don't want you to misinterpret anything. It's going to all of the roads. The question is, when is it going to the roads?
Right.
That is the question. I don't want
All right,
there to be
so-
any appearance of something nefarious here. Please
There's nothing
phrase it
nefarious. I
correctly.
mean, I know all the roads need to be fixed. I mean, every road.
No, but all of this money is going to the roads that were in the bond plan. You're right, there's some roads that are moving faster than others, and that's the nature of it. But the money is going to the roads that were in the bond plan, and I will get an update to you as soon as I can in writing about the other roads. I know that everything's able to proceed, and I know that the money for the drains is going to catch basins. I was able to confirm all of that in person, but I was not able to get it in writing, and I apologize for that.
Any other questions?
Yes.
This, you make good note here, Josh, that while this is a plan of action that can be taken place over the next 5 to 7 years, it also can be changed by different boards that come in. So all we're doing is approving you to move forward right now with the structure for '23.
That's correct.
Okay. We're not saying that this is exactly what has to be done at '24, '25, '26, and going on.
Correct. And Steve, I know you didn't quite get to the end of your motion. If you are still interested in making that motion, I would recommend that it be focused on the authorization to proceed with the sale of the bonds, not with the authorization to implement this debt structure for the next 8 years.
Right. I didn't see that as an authorization for the debt structure. It was just
Yeah,
move
that's just
ahead,
informational.
get the addition, get the bond right now, and get it for sale at the best rate you can right now.
Yep,
But only a portion of it, 11.5.
that's right. And actually, it's only 7.4 for infrastructure, just to clarify for everybody out there. The other 4.1 is for Hinsdale, and that's based on, I believe it was 10 million that was originally authorized for the
Originally.
Hinsdale School. So it's a tremendous victory on behalf of anybody who was on the building committee, the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Education, to get that down, to drive that down to a $4.1 million cost. That's nothing short of a miracle.
And as you have said, with the bond rating that we currently have, you're looking to help negotiate that, to move that to a better bond rating so we get a better deal on this bond.
Negotiate's a funny way to put it. It's more of a plea, but
Plea.
yes, we are putting our best foot forward. We spent over an hour today, myself with the bond advisor and our director of finance, making sure that we have a presentation tomorrow that's going to put us in the best possible position for a AA or AA plus rating.
Is that an in-person presentation?
No, that will all be telephonic. That's, there's no, they don't really do in-person bond ratings anymore in this day and age.
Well, Candy, with understanding your concerns about the movement of some roads, but also with the understanding that, you know, they're all gonna get done, maybe some quicker, some a little bit quicker. And as long as we keep the public aware that we are making these decisions, I see no reason to not let the town manager go ahead and make these bond issuance. Give them the direction to go ahead. You're looking for, do we need a motion just asking us to proceed, right? Because we don't need a special motion on this, do we?
Been made. Steve made the motion.
I know, but I'm just asking, do we need a
Steve
special?
did not hear.
I opened my mouth, but the motion didn't come out.
We don't
I
need
mean,
a resolution.
Make your motion, Steve, and let's go ahead with it.
Hold on. Candace?
When we're talking about, you have the 3.75 as the rate. That's based upon Moody's A?
So that's based on where we believe, if
We'll end
all
up-
things were equal
If we
right
get
now,
an
right.
AA or an A+, we think we'll still get, it won't go lower than 3.7.
We might be able to drive it down, especially if we get the AA plus, we might be able to drive that down. Honestly, it depends on the day. You could go in and on Monday, you're getting a 3.75, and on Tuesday, you're getting a 3.56. It could swing that wildly
So
right now.
that figure is not necessarily based on Moody's A, it's based on what you think you're gonna achieve.
It's a conservative estimate,
Okay.
knowing that we're going to hit somewhere probably just below that, but this is kind of the worst case scenario.
Steve?
I move that the Board of Selectmen direct the town manager to proceed with the issuance of $11.5 million in bonds between now and the end of April.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jack. Any discussion?
Yeah, I think Candy's point is that we're gonna do what we say we're gonna do, not that we're just issuing a bond.
Exactly. We're still gonna do what we said we're gonna do.
I know, but in the first phase of it, it's critically important that what we say we're gonna do, we do.
I agree.
And the timing in which we do them. Yes, I understand it. But if there is a switch of roads that get done at a particular time, maybe one in 24, one in 25, as opposed to opposite, we gotta let people know that the reason we're doing this is because we have additional money that came in on a grant that moves it quicker, or something like that. We must keep the information flow as clean as possible, so that the voters who have approved all of this know, okay, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? Okay, great, move ahead. Just keep that information flow. and get the information to Candy, so she's happy with it. And we'll all-
Everyone, everyone.
Well, it's not that I'm.
Everyone.
it's not-
Everyone will
It's
be
not just
happy.
for me,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
the
it's-
pro-
yeah,
it's the
it's for all of
process.
us.
It's the process, right?
Yep.
Because it's the process that drives everything. And if you're not following the process, then where are we? So it's not just for me, it's for the process. You know,
Understand.
because in the flyer, it says, go to this page and look at what road
What
improvements are
roads
gonna
are
be
gonna get
made.
done?
Just
I haven't
like
done
water and
that,
sewer.
but I don't even know what's on it, I haven't looked, but I just know. But I know if it's the same as it was, then there were some things that got moved around a little bit, and I just wanna know, you know, and it doesn't take that much time.
Full written report for the next meeting.
No other questions?
Well, I just want to speak in support of the motion because you've not only laid it, you've given us a strategy here. We may not use it, but at least there is a strategy that you've thought through. And it's better than letting things happen and seeing spikes year by year. We don't want to do that. So I appreciate the work that went into this.
Good comments, Dave.
All in favor? Unanimous? Thank you. Moving on to new business, item 23-11, consider and possibly act on a proposal to allow a structured tax payment plan for 630 Main Street.
So, John, if you want to come up to the front, I'll just introduce you a little bit here. John Noon, who I believe that you all know, a resident here in town, has approached town staff with an idea. And it's very much in its infancy, but we're trying to see if it has legs. And the proposal that was brought to my attention is that John has an interest in purchasing 630 Main Street, which is currently a church building. And that building is currently off our tax rolls. The proposal on the table would be to take 630 Main Street, and I'll let John talk about what the business proposal is, but to turn it into what would eventually be a taxable property. In order to make it happen, though, you have, I believe, an appraised value of over $1 million right now on that property. It would not be sustainable to expect a single taxpayer to take control of this property in 1 year with $26,518.41 in taxes in this current year's grand list and mill rate. It's not feasible. But having a structured tax plan that incrementally increases the amount that that individual and an eventual company pays in taxes may allow it to survive and have legs over time. So John's here today to talk to you a little bit about that proposed business, to answer any questions that you have, and what I'm looking from the board. The board's under no obligation to, sorry, John, the board's under no obligation to respond today, and it's under no obligation to respond in the affirmative by any stretch of the imagination. But what we're exploring is whether or not the board is in favor of considering some kind of a structured tax plan that may allow for smaller tax payments to be made in early years, increasing until 100% of the assessed value is paid in later years. If the board's interested in that, we can have private conversations. We can talk at another meeting. Don't feel like you need to say something tonight, but you're also welcome to. With that, I'll turn it over to John for a few minutes.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Good evening, everybody. My name is John Noon, and I'm the proud owner of the Redmonds building over here on the corner of Case Avenue and Center Street. And our intention when we initially bought that building a few years ago is to make it into a performing arts center for the town of Winstead. And recently the church, unfortunately the church congregation of the United Methodist Church had to vacate the premises up there. We were very sad to hear about that, but we actually made an attempt to try to do some kind of fundraiser for them, but they basically said that they were leaving, and it was in the hands of the church council at that point. And then recently it went up for sale, and we inquired about it. There was a few others who inquired about it as well, but we got into sort of a bidding war, and I think we may have potentially won the favor of the council. So at this point, we're preparing ourselves to purchase that building with the intent of making another version of a performing arts center. So we want to do what we hope to be theater and music events at the United Methodist Church and at the Baptist Church, well, we call it the Baptist Church, the former Redmond's building. We would like to do that and build that into a dance hall. Looking at both buildings, we found that this was the best fit for our purposes. It was formerly a church for the last 120 years. Obviously, Josh said it was off the tax rolls. But, you know, at this point, it will be a for-profit entity and eventually, you know, be on the tax rolls. But we're looking in the beginning just to get some sort of a tax break on it in hopes of being able to just make it work. I wrote down a few of the benefits that this would probably bring to the town. One of them being we're going to try to make a creative space for children and for teenagers in this venue. Obviously, entertainment for adults. We're hoping that it will be a boost to the local economy. I mean, if people are coming in for entertainment, they hopefully will also use the restaurants, the breweries, the bars, whatever else is available in town to make a full night of their entertainment dollars. We also hope that we would help to fill some of the other shops that are empty in town right now, because if the vibe gets exciting and people want to be here, other retailers and other shop owners would probably want to come in and be part of it. One of the other things we hope to do is maybe hopefully encourage other investors to invest in some of the mill buildings around here and turn them into something great. I just heard the other day that Five Points Gallery was looking at the old campus of UConn and possibly going to turn it into a modern art museum like Mass MoCA is, which is also a mill building up in North Adams, Massachusetts. So I could just imagine one of our mill buildings turning into the Connecticut Modern Art Museum of Connecticut, and that would be a major draw for tourism. And again, our end result is to bring tourism in. That's our goal, is to bring people from all Litchfield County to our location so that they can enjoy our town and have a good time here. So to make that happen, you know, we're hoping that we could get some kind of a tax break for the next few years, because as Josh said, $26,000 a year is a pretty substantial amount for us. And, you know, the arts don't necessarily pull in a lot of money to pay for things, but, you know, we're hoping to add other businesses in there. We might do weddings in the future, do something that would bring in some more dollars so that we can pay that tax bill come you know, once we're successful. If anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Yeah, anyone?
John, you're purchasing this as a group or as an individual?
Well, as an individual, but we've created an LLC called Northwest Entertainment for that purpose. And then under that will fall the Laurel City Music Hall, Laurel City Playhouse, and the Laurel City Dance Hall.
So the tax break that you're looking for, you could also be a nonprofit.
We eventually will allow the performing part of this to be nonprofit, but we want the buildings to be for-profit, so therefore you should be able to tax those, the buildings itself, the property. So that's our intention, is to try to make the nonprofit just the performing aspect of it. And if they're renting the space from us or whatever it is that they're doing, that's money that they would want to raise to pay actors, actresses, performers, musicians, whoever they bring in, producers, to do that. And then, of course, we being lovers of the arts, we're not going to throw anybody out if they can't pay the rent. So, you know, even though the building will be taxable, like I said, to really raise money to pay the taxes and the utilities and everything else, we're hoping to maybe do weddings in the future and bring in a little money that way, you know, not to take away from the arts. And we really don't want to charge a lot of money for the tickets. We want everybody to have access to this. We don't want to overcharge so that people can't get in there and really enjoy what we have to offer here.
So any renovations that need to be made to the building would be made by the building owners?
Yes.
and therefore those would be taxable renovations,
Yes, sir.
paid for through building permits.
Yes, sir.
Okay, but the entertainment itself section,
That's going to be a nonprofit, we hope. We're waiting for a group of people to come together and create that, and then they will be responsible for bringing in the quality entertainment with, it might take a few dollars to do that as well, so. They would, at that point, be able to raise the money needed through grants or through just fundraising opportunities, so that would be their responsibility. And we're going to help people get to that point, but, we don't want to be the main, we'll be the push, but we don't want to be the main people running it.
Josh, if we did something like this, it's more of a policy that goes across the town. It's not just for one particular piece of property. Am I correct on that?
Well, that's the direction that I would professionally recommend that you go. Right now, the town does not have a policy in place regarding when it is allowed to consider, a tax exempt or a tax abatement like this, tax exempt status, tax abatement like this.
Can we do
And
individuals?
We can. Yes. So as a board of selectmen, legally, in the state of Connecticut, there are certain types of abatements and certain types of exemptions you can grant. You can do them on a one-off basis, or you can develop a policy that really steers the conversation. And that's what I would recommend. We've had a few conversations as a board in the last few months even about the fact that we need more, we need larger taxpayers to come on to our tax rolls. That generally means we need to attract something, a larger structure, maybe more industrial, more large commercial, that's going to really grow the grand list. There are ways that you can even structure a policy where certain abatements are given if it's going to grow the grand list by X amount. You can set your limit and say if it's going to be at least this large, or it's going to provide at least, just as an example, $25,000 to the annual budget with the current mill rate, then you can provide a certain level of assistance. I'm not here to tell you exactly what that policy should be. That's your job, but I am happy to investigate what other towns offer as their policies, help you understand what's permissible under the state law, and then help you draft something once I have a direction on if that's even something you want to pursue. But I would recommend, if you're going to go forward, just having one-off decisions being made over and over again. It's not smart. You might want to do it on a single basis now while you develop a policy, just to help John get moving, since there's a level of time sensitivity to this, but I do think that a policy is in order. Something else I wanted to add with another comment that you made about being tax exempt. In order to be tax exempt on the property, for the property tax here in town, you need to both be a tax exempt agency that owns the building, and it needs to be used for a tax exempt purpose.
Yes.
Right. So John, just as an example, if he's doing work inside for the first year, even if he made a nonprofit and it was tax exempt and that tax exempt agency owned and was not yet operating the building, he would still, under the law, owe taxes that first year because it wasn't being used for a tax exempt purpose.
And those
If there were no
taxes are being
performances.
currently paid on Redmond's Hall.
Yes, yeah. As far as I'm aware, yes. There's no tax exempt use on that building. It
Right.
would be
Because he's still
taxable.
working on it, we're not using it,
Right.
just as you just explained what
Right.
could happen.
But that's
with the
another
church.
reason why in the short term, being tax exempt is not going to help John. In the first year, if he's still making repairs and improvements, even if he's a tax exempt organization, he's not using it for a tax exempt reason, so it would be taxable. So an abatement is something that is more appropriate if the board was interested in granting a level of relief.
If the use of that particular property changes from what it's been for 150 years, a church, and now we go into something else, does the requirement for zoning and parking change and therefore need some exemptions in that? Because there's no parking available directly in front of that. We didn't have it for the church because it wasn't part of the original plan. What-
Planning and zoning would absolutely need to take a look at that. It's possible that, I know that there have been some conversations with other nearby parking lots where there might be parking that can count towards this building as opposed to parking that's counting towards another building. And I know that John's working on all of those. But that's a planning and zoning issue. Not, it doesn't relate necessarily to a tax exempt or tax abatement status.
Jack, to answer partially that question, plan and zoning says that I believe it's called a cultural venue is acceptable in the current planning and zoning rules under town center zoning. This is in town center, and the parking is not required except for handicap parking. Basically, it's parking on the street, so it's as if. And the good thing about this building is it's sort of beyond what I call the potential entertainment zone. You know, it's past High Street where there's not much going on after that. I mean, we have the Tort Museum next, but after that, there's not too much going on. So all of that, if you go down on a Saturday night or so, and most of the parking's done right around the movie theater, you won't see too many cars parked up that far up. But
And if you've ever been to an event up at Norfolk, you know you park all over in every street, and you walk a half a mile to get to the theater.
Yeah, we hope not. Maybe Mr. Nader will, I think he'll probably loan us some handicap parking, but maybe he might even loan us some other parking as well on his
32
lot.
Lake Street's town parking lot.
Yeah, you got Lake Street, which is not that far away across that we own.
We own 32 Lake Street, the
Yeah.
parking lot, and the one next to it.
Yeah.
I have a question, John.
Yes, ma'am.
15 Case, I think I went to your open house there a few years ago.
Yes, ma'am.
What's the status of that? This is a big undertaking, and I'm curious, what's the plan for Case Street? When is that going to open?
Okay, thank you for asking. We got a little distracted in the construction phase of Case Avenue by the pandemic, and then we got a little distracted by the war in Ukraine because we support the people there, so we've been bringing in families and sponsoring them. So we just received our second family, but we've been fixing our houses up so that they could live in these houses. So we got a little distracted by that, but we're starting to push back towards the Case Avenue property right now. And what this purchase is actually doing for us in respect to the Case Avenue property is it's relieving us of a lot of the design and construction that we were going to do over there to adapt to theater works. The stage is kind of small. The backstage is kind of small, and to adapt.
Kind of, it is.
Yeah, and to adapt to all of that, we were going to have to do some pretty major construction over there. So by making this purchase, this other church, the United Methodist Church, is better suited for both theater and for music events, and the Redmonds building is better suited for dance events. So we're going to focus all our efforts into making the Redmonds building into more of a dance emporium, and the other church into theater and music. That is actually going to diminish the amount of work we have to do there. So where we're at right now with that, we're just finishing up the facade. As a matter of fact, I got the last load of siding coming in tomorrow from Vermont, and we're going to paint it and have it ready to go and finish up the outside of the facade by probably next month, by early spring. And then it's just really a matter of us cleaning up the floor, refinishing the floor. We're swapping our seats out. We're going to New Jersey and picking up a few more theater seats to change the look, paint the ceiling, and then we might be almost ready to go. So we're looking to, we're pushing hard, but we're hoping to get it open by summertime at least.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
So I'm just curious about, there's competition for you, 12 miles to the south here in terms of performance. How do you assess whether what you're doing is a viable enterprise?
Well, the difference between, let's say, the Warner Theater and ourselves is, well, originally we wanted to have 3 forms of entertainment: theater, music, and dancing. Dancing, I mean, not just show dancing, but people dancing, like ballroom dancing, country dancing, teenage dancing, anything that has to do with physically people engaging in dancing. So that was going to be how we kind of differed ourselves from everybody else, where we were going to come up with a way to adapt the hall so that it can accommodate all those different types of entertainment. So with this purchase, it's actually going to make it a lot easier for us to do that. And what I like about this is that both pieces of entertainment are sort of bookends of what I'm considering the entertainment zone. So people who come here will have a walkable town. So to walk from one entertainment venue to another, they're going to have all kinds of restaurants in between that they can stop off of, bars, breweries, and everything else. I mean, I see this as being a really fun town. And, you know, one of my objectives with this, and I spoke to this to Josh once a while ago, I don't know if he remembers this, but one of my objectives is to have a first night Winstead at some point. And if you've ever been to one of those, I used to bring my kids to them all the time when on the New Year's Eve. It's a good time. It's a lot of fun. But to do it, you have to have a very compact area and a lot of little places where performances can happen. And it's very exciting. It's a lot of fun for families. And with these two purchases, we're hoping that we can actually make that happen, you know, in the future.
I love it. Of all the things this town has been called, I'm not sure it's ever been called a fun town. Good luck. And Josh, I would encourage you to look into, you know, the idea of ordinance and how we might be helpful here.
John, the purchase has not gone through, correct?
No, but our bid has been accepted.
Okay, so once that occurs, what's your best estimate for renovation time and the time you would actually be open for business?
Well, I think we're going to try to shoot for this summer to start with some kind of performance. It might not be quite theater, but at least we can get some musical acts in there. We're contacting top-level musical directors right now and producers to try to get them in there and qualify some of the instruments that come with the church, and try to develop some kind of a music program in the church as it stands now. To do theater, we're going to enlarge the stage a little bit. We're going to, obviously there's a lot of cleanup to do. There's a lot of stuff left over inside, so that's going to be a major aspect. But as far as construction is concerned, we're going to adapt some of the bathrooms in the future. Right now, we can make one of them into a handicap bathroom up on this first floor, and that's, you know, that's a lot easier of a fix than it would be over at Case Avenue. So I think we can do both of them by the summer.
So
At least
you're not talking
get
like a year of renovation?
no.
Okay.
I mean, we're not going to be full blown, you know, ready to fly with everything, you know, a performance every night. But you know, at least get something going. At least by the summer, we're hoping to have a little, you know, activity going on. Yep.
Other questions?
Josh, I'd like to see some kind of a proposal from you that may turn into a policy of some sort on this.
It sounds like there might be some interest from, if not all of you, at least a majority, some of you. Would you like this to be something, should I focus on John's position first, or should we look at a whole policy that can be applied to any requester that comes forward?
Can you duel it?
I can duel it.
Yeah, let's just see what it would look like, because if it takes a while to get a policy in, and we can individually apply something that would help in the immediacy, then we might be able to make a decision that way. But I'd like to see what you propose.
Okay. I'm not looking to reinvent the wheel here. I'm going to use what's been tried and true
Absolutely.
in other towns.
Absolutely.
I'll try and get a couple examples together and get a little bit more direction from you in the next couple weeks. Unless there are objections, of course.
Anything else, John?
Yeah, one more thing. One thing I didn't mention about the change, the purchase, and how it would ease our move forward. One of the biggest challenges of Case Avenue was to put some way to get handicap access to the first floor where the activity is going to be. By making this purchase, we actually don't have to increase the size of the backstage, which means we don't have to bring out the south wall. We can actually do our handicap parking there, and we can put in a ramp. So all this is very capable from within our means, as opposed to an elevator, which was gonna, be pretty extensive of a cost, and that was really holding us back for a while. So this purchase is really gonna move things forward a lot for us.
Thank you, sir.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Item 23-12, proposed line item transfers.
So, as has been noted at prior meetings, we have a number of vacancies, not just in the police department, but in a number of departments. But we do have these vacancies in our police department. We have, that's allowed some amount of our medical benefits line to be freed up. We know it won't be spent this year because we've had the vacancies for long enough. And we do have a couple of lines that have seen growing increases as a result of inflation, as a result of all of these things that not just people at home are facing, but that the town's facing too. So right now, we have a $6,000 overage in the maintenance of vehicles line. Due to increased costs in that area, as well as a $6,000 increase in clothing and the clothing allowance and equipment. This is largely due to the clothing and equipment and uniform and everything else that we will need to acquire as we look to hire on a new chief of police. I know that it would be very much appreciated down in our police department if this transfer would be approved. So the proposal on the table is for $12,000 from fringe benefits medical in the police department budget be transferred, 6,000 of it into maintenance of vehicles and 6,000 of it into clothing allowance and equipment as presented.
Make that motion?
Thank you, Candy. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you, Jonathan. Any further discussion on this? All in favor? Unanimous? Thank you. Item 11, citizens' comments. The Board of Selectmen welcomes public comments. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes and may speak once. Please give your name and address. Who would wish to speak?
If I could, just real quick. I had a neighbor that was gonna be coming. Had a family emergency, so couldn't. It's the other abutting neighbor on the other side of ECAT. So, when Mr. Bagazy stepped in to take over for the engineering firm that ECAT had, there was an approved plan in place for this second phase of the project. Planning and zoning, myself, the original neighbors, the Reeves, put a lot of time and effort, well over a year, into meetings to come up with a design that would somewhat protect the neighbors from this commercial building in the middle of Newfield Road. Part of this design was to sink this building into the ground almost 9 feet, and remove the mechanicals from the roof so it doesn't look like a Walmart in the front of this home. Locate them behind the building with a concrete barrier there and a line of landscaping along it that was supposedly gonna be maintained and left. After all that work and all that effort, they've decided they'd like to pull that plan, submit a new plan, which is now to bring the building back up out of the ground, move it 20 feet closer to the property line, and put the mechanicals back out in open space with some small hedges around them to prevent noise and whatnot. He has a huge concern there. I wish he could have been tonight, but like I said, he had a family emergency. I'm sure he's gonna be at all planning and zoning meetings to speak, and maybe the next selectmen's meeting to speak. At one point when this home was constructed, this was just open meadows and hills with views all the way to Goshen. And now they are looking at the top of a commercial, absolutely commercial, Borghese Butler building, gold with a white roof, with big air conditioners on top, no screening. And now they wanna put a second building that, after a year and a half worth of work, they've just decided, we don't wanna do this, we wanna pull it up. I'm not positive it's gonna pass planning and zoning, but it's being suggested that after all this work. I was at the last planning and zoning meeting when the application was proposed to be accepted, and I could just see the look on the planning and zoning commission's face, like, after everything we've done, and now here we are again, and if it does get approved, we're all gonna be back here. This is guaranteed gonna go out a year and a half again. So I wanted to pass the sentiments along as best as I could for that neighbor. Again, I'm sure he will be in contact with you and his family. It might even be worth a visit up. I know planning is in, and he's been at the property several times to look at what they approved, and I think some of the commissioners were just not under it's one thing to look at it on a piece of white paper. Oh, this is great, he's tucked in the woods and this and that. Again, my own property with the fencing. I was told by P&Z, Winchester has a limit of 6-foot fencing. We can only have a 6-foot fence, which again, on a 14% grade coming down with traffic all night, the headlights go right over that. Then I was informed this year, a couple months ago, well, that's not necessarily true. You're allowed a 6-foot fence unless a permit's pulled. If a permit's pulled and they approve it, you can put a 12-foot fence up. You can put a solid wall up if you want. Well, now I have a 6-foot Walmart fence between the properties, and again, I don't know if there's any protections we can add to this when it goes back to P&Z, but certainly the neighbors on the other side should absolutely be afforded the protections of privacy. I mean, these are all large parcels of property on Newfield Road. And again, just want to pass those sentiments along from him.
Mr. Moser, I'd like to ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
You know, you've appeared before the Planning and Zoning Commission with your concerns, and they certainly know what you're talking about. I'm just at a point of, what can we do to help here? You've talked to Josh, we're talking about enforcement. That's a big issue that I keep writing down, that the couple of other speakers talked about, enforcement. What would you have us as a Board of Selectmen do?
Well, can I put this to you almost as a rhetorical question? I'm not familiar where your home is or where your property is, but if you had a piece of property with a home on it, you've been there, I've been there over 3 decades. You were in another town, planning and zoning said, oh, we're gonna put a small little business in next to you.
I appreciate that, yeah.
And then you find out that they're gonna put a large commercial building with, operations of hours, 14 hours a day. They put a little fence in, you now have headlights going all across your property. Nothing you can do, correct? But there's a set of rules. Hours of operation. This guy put a driveway in, I informed P&Z 4 or 5 months ago. He had an approved parking lot. He decided he wanted 10 feet wider, so he just put boulders down, no drainage, no nothing, backfilled it, put it right to the neighbor's property.
So we're
Brought it up to
really
them.
talking about,
We said we'd look into it, and
we're really talking about enforcements.
that's my primary concern, is protections for the neighbors,
Right.
enforcements, and again, as you worded it, Josh, bite. We really don't have much we could do to bite. Never had a problem with ECAT as a business. It's a wonderful organization. What they do is great. The individual that owns it is a neighbor out of movies. He's a neighbor out of movies. He'll look at you and smile and and he's flipped neighbors off. He yells and screams at the neighbors. He'll go up 6 o'clock in the morning with his truck doors open, crank the radio up at 6 a.m. when nobody's around, and walk away and just leave the vehicle there. And when I tell people this, they go, no. Well, okay, I've lived it for 25 years. The problems with ECAT started when he clear-cut 10 feet of my property, the entire length out back. And when I told him, you can't do that, the response was, well, you don't use it, what do you care? And this is what we've dealt with as neighbors, and again, the other properties have sold a couple times and neighbors have moved. I'm not the guy that reacts well to a bully. And I really don't have any options other than trying to speak to you guys, trying to work with planning and zoning, and I get frustrated with planning and zoning, and I respect every one of them, what they have to do, but when I hear, we're gonna look into it, we're gonna do something about it, Mr. Pozo. We're really concerned about your problem. And I call about the same problem, and they go, well, we talked to him about the parking lot he just put in a few months ago, and we told him not to park there. I said, oh, well, thank you very much for telling him not to park on his new parking lot they put in. I'm sure he's really concerned and really threatened. Well, we're gonna have them plant grass on it
So
in the
Josh,
spring.
hearing about all this tonight, is there something that you feel that there's action that you can take?
So as I've said, Mr. Pozo and I, we actually haven't spoken before today.
Not in depth, not in depth, we absolutely
Right.
have not.
So, you know, this is my first go-around, I think, with ECAD, and the fact that they're bringing a proposal in front of planning and zoning right now, I think is an opportunity to use that lever to make sure that we have the bite that we're looking to have. We are currently transitioning between enforcement officers. I know that you had been speaking to Michael about it, and I know that he'd taken some actions up there. But
And I worked
there's
with
more.
Mark Melanson for many years before on
Right.
it as well.
Right, and so now we're at a point where whoever's coming in, we need to make sure that this is their top priority as a new hire. But, and they'll have to get onboarded a little bit and learn about it as we go along, as we all have, as we've come into it, unlike you, who's been dealing with it from the
Yeah.
beginning.
I appreciate that.
Understood. So I hate to say we've got things we're going to do and we're going to look into it, but I do know that town staff has been looking into it this week already. I saw the emails flying about it over the last several days, and I want you to know that I plan on following up with all of you individually to make sure that you know what I'm doing and that you're hearing directly what actions are being taken.
And I appreciate that. One thing I'm here for too is awareness that this is not a neighbor battle just between me and the adjoining property owner. It is, but when all the other neighbors started getting dragged into it, and I have several neighbors that have concerns over this property that are so intimidated, they would never come in and talk to you. They're afraid of repercussions from the neighbor and they're concerned, but they don't wanna, and again, as I said, I was never one to react well to bullies. And for the neighbors that won't come here and speak themselves, I will absolutely stand up and represent them, you know, and inform everybody that this is a problem, and this guy is downright a bully. Nice guy on camera, but he's downright a bully, and he's intimidated neighbors, and it just doesn't sit well with me, and I'll do everything right till the very end. But compliance and enforcement is a must. That's not even an ask, correct? That's not even, I'm coming to the you know, commission and saying, I want an ask here. I want compliance and enforcement of existing regulations and rules that unfortunately have been neglected for years. And I guess that's what I'm looking for assistance with, to answer
Fair
your
enough.
question
Thank you.
specifically.
And as you're saying, it's not even isolated to one property. We know of other properties where there are continuing and existing and new zoning issues. Unfortunately, for a period of time, we did have a zoning office that only had one person in it. We've built that capacity up a little bit, and it's getting better, but we need to make sure that we're getting to all of these in a timely manner.
Yeah,
And I appreciate
I
that.
think one thing that would assist you in planning and zoning as well is transparency and communication.
Yep.
It's key with people when they come to you and present the problem. It's one thing to say, we're gonna look into it, but when you don't get back to people, communication, especially with me, you know, I'm in an industry where I have constant communication with multiple facilities people and executives, and if I don't have communication, I'm held accountable. There's accountability there, and I think that's one thing that where residents get frustrated.
Yep.
So, but I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight and convey some of the sentiments of the neighbors, and I appreciate your time.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
I might just offer a comment. There might be other places that the gentleman could relocate to within the town of Winchester that would be more suitable. I mean, this type of operation that he's got it's on a hillside. And it doesn't work too well on that. And there's houses either side that really doesn't fit within the plan of the development that is set forth in the R1 designation. So rather than acquiesce to just that one location, what can you do? Maybe there's a more commercial place that would be very suitable for him
David Lapointe, 11 Hillside Avenue, Winston, Connecticut. In regards to what I said before, and I hate to belabor the point, I'd like to know, not as Selectman Perez said, what the fund balance was in 2022. And yes, Mr. Town Manager, you did say the fund balance is going to be presented because the audit has, you have a copy of the audit from King and King. So that's good. So then you do know the fund balance.
Yes, and I made that clear. The last time that we spoke in my office, I had shared with you that we have the most recent audited financials. That is the time of year that where we calculate it every time.
Right.
What
So-
you're asking for is an update mid-year, which is not typically done, which is why we've been asking if you're interested in seeing an updated mid-year number. We would need you to pay for the staff's time to get that done. That's not a calculation that's made
Well,
mid-year.
you just said that the fund balance has been calculated by King and King.
Yes, on a fiscal year basis. So
Yeah,
at the
well, that's
fiscal year,
fine.
yeah, but I shared that with you in my office, and
No,
you said
I-
you
I
weren't
get-
interested in it.
I want to know what the fund balance is, and that's from
Okay.
King and King.
Okay.
As of.
We have that for you.
Okay, then
Okay.
I can get it.
You can get it tomorrow in
Great.
my office.
But
All
that's
right.
June 30th of last year.
It's June 30th of 2022.
So then,
That's the date we
the
calculated.
fund balance from last year, it's not accurate as to what it is right now.
It will
So-
be at the end of each year.
Exactly.
When it's
So
audited.
We recalculate at the end of the fiscal
When
year.
you're formulating your budget,
Yeah.
and not to get into dialogue, but you do know what you have in the bank.
We use, you're exactly right. We use the number from the most recent audited financials. So we're looking at the fund balance as of June 30th, 2022.
So that-
And that's the fund balance that we use as we're creating the budget.
Okay.
And we have a fund balance policy
Okay.
that was enacted in 2015.
Okay, so second, if I may continue on my 3 minutes, galore here. In 1948, Mr. Cornelio, he did a film. And I suggest, if you haven't seen it already, it's at the library. 1948, what Winston looked like. And a lot of you know what Winston looked like. It was a beautiful, happy place. So I believe that you would say that of that year and that date. And on that date and that time, in 1948, the Church of the United Methodist, as well as the Catholic Church, as well as the Baptist Church, as well as every church, including the Jehovah's Witness, including the Bethel Synagogue, was a happy place, and the people were worshiping the Lord, as some of you do here. And by the way, I'm guilty of not worshiping the Lord on the Sabbath. So, when we all stand to account for what we've done in our lives, let us be faithful and true to what we do, and know that our work truly on this earth is of God or it is of not. And I say, I think it's a travesty that the good people, and they were few, I believe 12 of the United Methodist Church, who, by the way, did not vote to give up their church of 150 years. So if that happened in the Catholic Church, and there was only 12 members left, and the bishop then said from another state, New York, by the way, a bishop that is an abomination to the Lord our God, he is an abomination because he does not follow the word of the Lord, says it's closed, and regardless of what the parishioners said, okay, that church legally, I believe, should not be sold, because the good parishioners are at a loss. And even though it was 12, that building was illegally taken from them. And I want you to know this, their story, the untold story that the newspapers, the fake news, did not tell. And the abomination continues, because when the Lord comes, he's going to say, what did you do? You gave a tax exemption now to not a house of prayer, but a house of dance and a house of irreproof. which will have plays in it that are not of good decency and of. My wife and I went to a play in Norfolk at the library, and the plays were both abominations, and we left midway through. So if you continue on this course of entertainment, look at that tape of 1948 and how happy the people were in 1948 coming out of the churches and how they were dressed. And by the way, I am a sinner. I am not holier than thou. But in 1948, people had it in order. There was sobriety. There wasn't pot and alcohol all over the place. By the way, Winston's gotten pretty good on the alcohol. But we're going in the other direction. I see more and more of more people at the bars and at the pubs than they are at the churches. And that's a problem, as I see it. Maybe the Lord sees it different.
Thank you, David.
It was quite something, wasn't it? I know David's very religious, but forcing religion into a civic situation like this is, but you were very patient with it, which I know you've been many, many times. I'm gonna give you all this paperwork, Josh, that I've got. This is all documentation that's in your files anyway. So, situation, and I hope you're not gonna cut me off at the knees on the 3-minute thing, like everybody else had a lot, 10 or more minutes to talk about. I know you just have a dislike for me and whatnot.
You called out my name, I didn't do it.
Well, I called it out because you didn't make it well known you dislike Marcia Sterling.
No, you called me out before this, so stop talking to me and talk to everybody.
Well, all right, okay. So anyway, let's get back to quickly the supposed Selectmen slush fund, right? That was
Call it a
supposed-
slush fund. It's not a slush fund.
That's what it's.
It's not a slush fund.
What is it called
Don't
then?
call it that.
What is it? Call it what it
It's a
is.
contingency fund.
And it's not 50,000.
It's a
And the
contingency
50,000
fund.
you're talking about was used by Glenn Albanese and I to give to planning and zoning so they could research and pay for our new planning and zoning regulations.
Okay,
Thank you.
remember we had
I was mayor.
Northwest Connecticut kind of Chamber of Commerce, you had an individual here, and that money was targeted to increase the
Economic development.
economic development.
And it was determined by Glenn and I and the Board of Selectmen that the best way to increase economic development was to ensure that our planning and zoning regulations were not illegal and that we were easier to do business with.
I hear what you're saying, Hayes, but,
Candace.
Candace, I'm sorry. The money was supposed to get somebody out in the field to go out there and recruit businesses to come to this town. That wasn't done.
Correct. Because
And
it was
that
felt
is-
that the most critical issue facing the
that-
town
but
was
that's-
having regulations that were entirely outdated that could be holding us accountable in a court.
You know, I fought hard for that $50,000. I fought hard for it so that we could get someone out in the field.
We did get someone out in the field the following year for $50,000.
And what happened?
He served his term.
He served his term, and then what happened for the next year? It was supposed to be another 50,000 produced to put another person out in the field to try
No,
to.
no, there wasn't. Every year is a different budget year. And
That
money
was-
is
no, 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 no,
allocated
no.
specifically.
What was supposed to be that $50,000? Originally, the original purpose, and it was supposed to follow year after year after year. Instead.
That's a
it got-
capital improvement plan only. Unless you hire someone, it doesn't happen year after
Why
year.
not?
We hired a
That was the
consultant.
idea.
No, we hired a consultant. And it was very clear, if you want to go back to all the Board of Selectmen minutes, be my guest and read them.
Anyway, we got a problem. We just went through a pandemic. We have a situation, I still try to figure that out with my own people, how the Ukraine caused us to have increased fuel costs as well as food costs. You got a country that's all the way across the pond, and we're one of the greatest producers of food, and we've got our own, well, we know what happened with the oil situation. 'Cause I pushed a super tanker around for a while anyway. So it's just incredible where the position is now. We're gonna have a situation here, we're gonna have, at some point, fuel's gonna go up, food is already still increasing and everything else. We've got, an exodus, believe it or not, an exodus of population in this state. We have a situation where, you've got, we're talking about the church as a performing arts center. Well, you've got the Warner Theater, and then you got Infinity's Hall over here in Norfolk, and they have another version over in Hartford and so forth, and now you're gonna plop another one in this, and I would love it. I mean, I love going to Infinity Hall and so forth, my wife. Unfortunately, I got my own particular problems because my wife's got cancer and I got cancer. And I don't know where I'm gonna be at. I'm 74 years old now. I don't know where I'm gonna be in another year from now. But anyway, I'm a fighter, all right, bottom line, everybody knows that. So we gotta start and get some people out in the field. You can't wait for them to come to you. You've gotta go out there and dredge them up and get people to come here, see what you're offering. This ECAD situation up on Newfield Street, do we have any opportunity to get any other property under town, management? I mean, we've got the industrial parks, but do we have enough property that we can offer to other people? I mean, other than when we had the, where the Little Red Barn is, and so forth. How much more land do we have to offer industrial right now? We've got a lot of, right now, small businesses, little restaurants. The price of food keeps going up. I'm even talking to my buddy, who's the head chef at St. Patricia's House. He's even saying they don't know if they can survive another situation if the food goes up. Steve's a very good manager. He's the head chef there and his boss. I look at all these things. You've got to get out there to recruit businesses to come in here. These restaurants, they come and they go, they come and they go, and whatnot. They work on a very thin margin, very, very thin margin, and so forth. We need, as I was saying, we need some really hardcore industrial coming in here. I don't know, over near the DMV, I know that Gene got sick and Bill quit, got rid of, sold out the Northwest Outdoors, but they've got that gravel pit down there. That could be built some sort of, it's got access, good road access to it. I don't know if that's available. I mean, so many things that it could be done, but we got to get some really hardcore tax bases. The little guys, they are nice and they're gonna, but there's not gonna be a Kent, where you got a little footsy, little town with the Pipe and Drum restaurant, and a whole bunch of other little ones, and the little Italian bistro there. You go in the back where they had the little towns, half the stores are empty, just like it's here. They can't survive and whatnot. And this is gonna be the biggest problem. You got I give you everything. You have been transparent like I have, and Bob Geiger too, but you especially have been much more transparent.
Captain.
And
Captain, please start to wrap it up.
Yeah, but the only reason I come back to this forum is because I got that letter and whatnot, about the budget. Yeah, I got that, and that wound me up. I was like, okay, that's good, but you need to get some people out in the field. I mean, Jack is a good one. His capabilities as a recruiter is very, very good. He dealt with companies looking for personnel, and he had personnel looking to go into companies. He's an excellent choice to get out in the field, try to drudge up some business because of this town. All right?
I'm sorry, I'm retired.
Well, why are you then on the selectmen? You retired? You could go out there, put a couple of days in, couldn't you?
Thank you for your comments.
All right, gentlemen, ladies, oh, both. I know you didn't see me for a couple of years, but I had my own problems. But, now that we're in this situation, I don't wanna see us, let me give you an analogy. You don't cross the Atlantic Ocean with a half load of fuel. You're gonna wind up adrift in the middle of the Atlantic. Oh, sorry.
Selectmen comments and reports?
Let's see, on the 9th, we're gonna have an open house at JT's Cafe at 720 Main Street.
5 p.m.
5 p.m. And then, Bears With Us, or something like that, at 7 p.m. on the same day with the Conservation Commission. Bears Among Us.
Anyone else?
Along with promoting, Saturday, 11 o'clock at Beardsley Library, the Soldiers Monument Commission is presenting Irish song singer and storytellers. That's free to the public, Beardsley Library, Saturday, this Saturday, 11 o'clock.
Anyone else? Seeing none, moving to item 13, executive session concerning the possible sale of town-owned property and concerning contract strategy and negotiations. Can we have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Candace. Do we have a second?
Second. Take Linda.
I'll second.
And it is 9:07.
Let's go.
Lou?
Yep.
Leave my office.
outset before you came, you said you were just late, so
Oh, yeah.
never had, you don't have to worry about that. He'll always be
Oh, yeah, thanks so much.
taken care of.
Yeah, well, it's busy town. Got stuff. Would you rather have had a 20-minute meeting and go home and say, gee, nothing's happening? Yes?
Speakers.
You gotta change your job beginning time.
I did.
But
I went from 6 to 7.
Oh, yeah.
I just have a,
But on Tuesdays, you should go to maybe
have an hour
about
drive.
10. You're gonna change the whole structure of Tuesday beginning.
Oh, no, women, did you get that score? Hey Siri, Yukon versus Providence. You got the rhythm over there, huh?
Hey,
Oh,
life
Siri,
is
let me
full
know.
of rhythms.
Hey Siri, score of Yukon women versus Providence, Big East.
They're playing Villanova.
That's why it gave me the wrong score. Did you get? how'd
I
you
have
get-
no idea, I don't know what it is.
Hey Siri,
It's 10:41. We are back from executive session. We are taking no action. Steve?
move we adjourn.
Seconded. Thank you, Jonathan. All in favor? Good night. See ya in 2 weeks.
Oh, Lord. Well, they played Villanova.